the first question is from Eddie. Eddie, would you like to ask the question?
Hi, Michael.
Hi.
Thanks for a really amazing talk, and thanks for all your expertise and all the information you share. So my question is really, it's really about practice and a specific type of practice Ramana recommended, which was to incessantly think to oneself, I, and he said that would lead oneself to the self, the real self.
Yes.
So I like doing that practice. I find that a good practice, and I think you touched on it in the talk today. But while I'm doing that, I sort of feel, there's another question he recommends. What is it that rises as I? And I sometimes ask myself that one. Find that a very nice one. And I suppose, I think I'm just trying to clarify what, like when I'm repeating I to myself, I feel that I should be focused. I put my attention on what is rising, or the consciousness that is rising as I. And then just to, another couple of clarifications I was hoping you could maybe help me out, is, so you in your video you said about self-investigation. I watched a couple of one you done with a chap in India, and you were saying cling on to I am. So now, like I've just said, I like doing that practice with I. Ramana recommended that. So, I am is Sat Chit and its existence, consciousness. But, so I'm Ramana wants us to repeat I. Why not I am? Or why not, if we're trying to get rid of the ego I, why not do am? Why not repeat am to yourself? So I think my ego's maybe, my mind's playing games with me, maybe confusing me, but do you know what I mean? I was just trying to think, well, I shouldn't be thinking, but, I'm just trying to think, could you even think to yourself, I am, or something? But
yeah. The crucial thing to understand is what is self-investigation, what is Atma-vichara. As Bhagavan says, it's keeping our mind always fixed on ourselves. In other words, keeping our attention fixed on ourselves, being self-attentive. This is what is Atma-vichara. So if we understand this, all these other things will fall in place. It'll become clear. Why, for example, does he say, even if one thinks I, it will lead to that place? When we say a word, if I say, think of an apple or eat an apple, I'm not talking about the word apple. I'm talking about the object that is denoted by that word. So when you're asked to eat an apple, it's not the word you want to eat. It is you are asked to eat that which the word refers to. Likewise, if you're asked to think of an apple, you're not just to think of the word apple, you're to think of what is that word referring to. Likewise, when we think of I, it doesn't mean thinking the word, it means attending to that to which the word refers. So when Bhagavan says, even if one goes on thinking I, that is because the word I refers to ourself. So it is an aid to keeping our attention fixed on ourselves. It is particularly useful at the early stages of practice. When we begin to practice, people often have difficulty at first grasping what is meant by self-attentiveness, because we are generally so used to attending to objects. When we're asked to attend to a subject, we continue thinking in terms of attending to objects. So, I mean, for example, one thing that people often say, people have often said this to me, and you can even find this in talks and other such books, people saying this to Bhagavan: I'm not able to find the I. When they say, I'm not able to find the I, that clearly shows they haven't understood what Bhagavan is saying. The I we are looking for is nothing other than the I that says, I cannot find the I. So, but why people have this difficulty? Because, as I say, because we are so used to attending to objects, that attending to the subject seems very elusive to people at first. So to help us to familiarize ourselves with the practice of being self-attentive, Bhagavan sometimes recommended just repeating the word I. But it's not, we shouldn't be meditating on the word I, because in English we say I, in Sanskrit it's aham, in Tamil Nān, in French is je, so in Spanish is yo. So every language, the word is different, but the word always refers to the same thing. Whatever language we say it in, it's referring to ourselves. So Bhagavan suggested this practice as an aid to help people familiarize themselves with the practice of being self-attentive. Once we become familiar with the practice of being self-attentive, then it's not necessary. That's why he says in verse 20, if we want to go deep in this practice, we have to leave aside the word. That's why he says in verse 29 of Uḻḷadu Nāṛpadu, which I read earlier, not even saying the word I by mouth, investigating with an inward thinking mind, what is the place from which this I rises, that alone is the path of knowledge. So it is an aid that is useful in the early stages of our practice, but we need to understand the purpose of this aid. The aim is not to meditate on the word I. The aim is to help us to turn our attention back to that which is denoted by the word I, in other words, ourself. So it's an aid to being self-attentive. You ask about the I am. Yes, whether you say I or I am, it's referring to the same thing. I refers to ourself, and I am is a statement of our existence. I exist. So our self and our existence are not two different things. So it is the reason Bhagavan sometimes used this term I am was to distinguish our real nature from ego. As ego, we are always aware of ourselves as I am this or I am that. I am Eddie or I am Michael or I am Brahman or I am the devil or whatever. Any identification, I am talking, I am thinking, we identifying ourselves with things other than ourselves. Whereas what we actually are is just I am. I am is, what does I am mean? It means I exist. So the word I am, the phrase I am, refers to our very existence, our very being. Explicitly, it refers to that. Implicitly, it refers to our awareness, because our existence and our awareness of our existence are not two different things. So yes, if you find it helpful to say I am, yes, that is as effective as saying I, which whatever will help us turn our attention back to ourselves. I am is particularly useful because I am is not referring to our identity. If you say I am Eddie, am there is not what you mean is that am there is a copula. You're identifying I with Eddie. Mm-hmm. But when you say just I am has a different meaning. Am there refers to your existence. When you say I am Eddie, you're saying I exist as Eddie. So that's your identity. But when you just say I am, it's just a statement of our existence. our identity is false, our present identity, but our existence is real. So I am is referring to our very existence. So arguably even more beneficial than just saying I, just mentally repeating I am. But whichever we choose, the important thing is to attend to that which it is referring to. What are we to attend to? It's our very being we are to attend to. And attending to, how to attend to our being? Only by being our being. That is one thing. Another thing, you referred to the rising of I. The I that rises is ego. Our real nature is not this rising I, it is the being I. So that it is the being I which is referred to by the term I am. Whereas the word I can refer either to our being or to our rising. Our rising is ego. Our being is what actually is. So in order to go deep in this path, it's not our rising that we need to investigate, it's our being. Mm-hmm. And if we have, because we now experience ourselves as this rising I, attending to the rising I is is pointing us in the right direction. As Bhagavan said, attending to ego is like a dog following its master's scent. The scent is for the dog. It's an infallible clue. If a dog pursues that scent, it will lead to its master. Likewise, if we attend to ego, because the nature of ego is to rise and stand and flourish by attending to other things, but to subside if it attends to itself. When we attend to ourselves, when we attend to ego, ego subsides, and the place where it subsides is the place from which it rose, namely ourselves, what we actually are. So a deep, I mean, it's essentially, it's all the same. However we describe it, the practice is essentially the same, just attending to ourselves, just being self-attentive, just being as we actually are. That is the practice. But how we understand the practice, people find it helpful at first to think of it in terms of investigating ego, investigating the rising I. But a deeper understanding of the practice is we are not investigating our rising, we're investigating our very being. We're investigating that from which this rising takes place. So what deepens, when we go deeper in this practice, our understanding of the practice deepens. The clarity of our self-awareness deepens. But the practice remains the same. That is, from beginning to end, Atma-vichara means nothing other than keeping our attention fixed on ourselves. Bhagavan has recommended, has given us various pointers. He's also suggested various aids, various clues to help us to be self-attentive, like saying, even if one goes on thinking I, this is an aid to help us to fix our attention on ourselves. So when we repeat I, we shouldn't be attending to the word I, we should be trying to attend to that to which the word I refers, namely ourself. Mm. Does that adequately answer your question?
Yeah, and I guess it's just, it's kind of feeling your existence. It's kind of saying that if someone said to you, how do you know you exist? Without telling me, you'd have to, you would know just by the sense. It's the sense of it. Yeah,
that is our awareness of our existence. That is the basic awareness. That is the one thing we're aware of always. When we're awake, we're aware I am. When we're dreaming, we're aware I am. When we're asleep, we're aware I am. The only thing that continues in all the three states is this fundamental awareness of our own existence, I am. So this alone is what is real. So this is what we should be meditating on. If we understand that, that is sufficient.
Yeah, just another quick one. The word am by itself isn't very helpful either, because you need the I and the am together, don't you? Really?
In English, we never say am without I. Generally, we don't. But in Tamil, you don't have to say I. You can just say irukkarein, because the I is implied in the am. So it varies slightly from language to language, usually in English. I mean, there's no wrong. If you find it useful to just say am, I mean, am cannot refer to the existence of anything else other than I.
Yeah.
I is clearly implied in am.
Yeah. So I could do that. So
Yeah.
That's great. That's great then, Michael. Thank you very much.
Yes. But the important thing to remember, any words are only an aid.
Yeah, it's a sense of being.
It's that awareness I am. That is what we are to attend to. Not to the word I am, but to the awareness I am. That is the awareness of our own existence. That awareness I am is such it. It's our awareness of our existence.
Which is more like an energy in us, and more like a sort of
even
feeling.
To say an energy, but when we talk about energy, we tend to think in terms of energy. Energy tends to mean something dynamic. Yes, it's alive, but it's alive with stillness. So
stillness. Stillness.
It is it's very difficult to. If you take a water reservoir, a big dam, and the water is held in that reservoir, the water may be perfectly calm, but how much power is there in that water? If the dam cracks, the water will come rushing out with so much force. But the perfect state of power is the state of perfect stillness. It's only if a dam is weak, then the power manifests itself as so much energy. But if a dam is strong, the power just remains as it is, without becoming energy, without manifesting as energy. Likewise, the state of supreme power is that state of perfect peace, Bhagavan has said, that state of perfect stillness, where there is no movement at all, where we just are as we are. That is the state of supreme power. So yes, all energy is contained in that, but it's not any. It's not it is potential energy, not the kinetic energy.
Yeah. It's changeless. It's still,
it's just being.
Yeah. Okay, that's fantastic. Thanks, Michael.
Right. And we are that. We are nothing other than that mere being. It's only when we rise that we seem to be Eddie or Michael or whoever. But what we actually are is just that being. So our aim is to return to that being, just to be as we actually are.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Right.
We can go on to the next question. So this one is... So the question is, in his reference to the studying of texts, does Bhagavan mean that the books should be neither our focus, nor should they be totally shunned by us?
What Bhagavan actually says here, at the end of the first sentence of this paragraph, he says, Nulgale alavindri padipatal payanile. There is no benefit, implying there's no benefit to be gained by studying texts. Alavindri means without limit. So it is the endless study of more and more texts. That is, many people, they are attracted to this subject, but then they, instead of taking to the practice, they just want to know more and more. And in this text, it said like this. In this text, it said like that. There seems to be differences. What are the differences? Is Vedanta saying the same as Buddhism, or is it saying something other than Buddhism? So you begin to, and so many texts, contain arguments against other philosophies. So then you want to know about what are these other philosophies that have been, and you can go on and on and on. This is what is called, sometimes referred to as sastravasana, the inclination to go on and on studying texts, learning more and more philosophy. And okay, this is one view, this is another view, this is another view. Which views are correct? And it's endless. This is all extroversion. It's all outward going of the mind. The purpose of any true Advaitic text, if an Advaitic text is of any value, it is pointing our attention back at ourselves. So a few texts, Bhagavan isn't saying that we shouldn't study any text at all, because obviously it's by studying these texts like Nāṉ Ār, but we need to study these in order to clearly understand their way. And it's also useful to continue studying these because that encourages us to continue putting it into practice. And the more we put it into practice, the more depth of meaning we see in what Bhagavan is saying. So that is, anyone who's been following this path, even for a few years, if you read what you read a few years ago, you will see that you understand it quite differently to how you understood it at first. And at first we understand something. But as we go deeper in the practice, our understanding of the depth of meaning and the depth of implication in what Bhagavan is saying becomes clearer and clearer. So Bhagavan isn't opposed to us studying text, but not studying without limit. That is, we don't need to read many texts, because we need some texts that tell us all that we need to know. Bhagavan's texts, Nāṉ Ār, Uḻḷadu Nāṛpadu, Upadēśa Undiyār, these texts tell us all we need to know. So we don't need to go and, I haven't studied this Upanishad, I haven't studied that Upanishad, and what did this commentary say, and what did that it becomes, we need to set boundaries, we need to set limits. So if we are earnest in wanting to follow Bhagavan's teachings, all the help and guidance that is required has been given to us by Bhagavan in his own writings. So we should set a limit. Okay, Bhagavan's texts are sufficient for me. I don't need to go reading all these other things. Because the problem with when we read more and more, things are expressed in different ways in different places. Often other texts are written by people with particularly commentaries, or they're often written by people with different level of understanding. So they will be explaining things differently. Bhagavan has given us the very heart of Advaita in the very simplest manner. So by sticking to Bhagavan's teaching, by limiting ourselves to Bhagavan's teachings, we're on very safe ground, because we're not going to get confused. The more we read Bhagavan's teaching, the clearer it will all become. Whereas if we begin to read, what is said here, what is said there, what did Nisargadatta say, what did he say, what did this person say? When we begin to read and comparing one with another, then we begin to get into confusion. That is why in any spiritual path, it is said one-pointedness is necessary, ekagrata. If you want to, that is an age-old analogy that is often given. If you want water, you need to dig one well. Dig one deep well and you will get water. If instead you dig 5 feet here, 5 feet there, 5 feet there, 5 feet there, you're going to end up with many wells but no water. All you need is one well that is sufficiently deep. So go on digging in the same place. So if we are attracted to Bhagavan's path, it doesn't mean we should completely ignore everything. Sometimes in passing, we may see a reference to some verse in Bhagavad Gita or some verse in the Upanishad, or references to the Mahavakyas or things like that. It doesn't mean we completely close our mind to other things, but our focus is only on Bhagavan's teachings. Because it's only if we focus on Bhagavan's teachings, we will be able to understand it clearly. If we allow our mind to wander here, there, how is it said here, how is it said there, why does this person say like this and this person say like this? We are filling our mind with unnecessary thoughts. We need to limit ourselves. Bhagavan's teachings are very focused. That all Bhagavan's teachings can be summarized in who am I? These 3 words summarize the whole of Bhagavan's teaching. So we are investigating to know ourselves. So we need texts that are very focused on this practice. There is no, as far as I'm aware, there are no spiritual teachings that are so clearly and usefully focused on the simple practice of being self-attentive. That's what Bhagavan's teachings are about from beginning to end. Whatever Bhagavan has taught us, it is all pointing us back to the simple practice of self-investigation. Even what Bhagavan, for example, what Bhagavan has taught us about the law of karma. Why did Bhagavan teach us, saying that everything is, whatever happens in our life is predetermined, so that we need not be concerned about these things? Since it's all predetermined, whatever we do or don't do, it's going to happen as it's going to happen. So we need not be concerned about our outward life. The only useful effort we can make is to turn our attention within. So we should study only those texts that help us and encourage us to turn within, to be self-attentive, to attend to nothing other than ourselves. I hope that adequately answers that question. Bhagavan certainly didn't discourage studying, because, I mean, Bhagavan himself wrote verses, and he and Murugan were often consulting. I mean, Murugan was writing Guruvachaka Kovai, and he would show the verses to Bhagavan. Bhagavan would correct them. So Bhagavan knew the value of texts. But as he says in this first sentence, after knowing that Mano Nigraham alone is the ultimate intention of all the texts. So Mano Nigraha means subjugation of mind. How to subdue the mind? How to bring about this dissolution of the mind, this eradication of the mind or cessation of mind? It's only by investigating ourselves. So that's what we need to do. And we need to limit ourselves to those texts that are constantly emphasizing the need for us to attend to ourselves.
Thank you, Michael. That's the most comprehensive answer. Thank you.
Okay, right.
Hi, Michael. The next question is, I have heard Annamalai Swami and a couple of other non-dual gurus say that you need a body in good health to realize the self. What are Bhagavan's sayings on this? For example, if one is in pain, this can take attention, this can take your attention or make one feel depressed.
Bhagavan said everything, all these outward things are determined by prarabdha. If it's your destiny to be healthy, to have a healthy body, you'll have a healthy body. If it's your destiny to have a sick body, you'll have a sick body. If it's your destiny to experience pain, you'll experience pain. We don't need a healthy body. What we need is to be self-attentive. Okay, there's pain. To whom did this pain appear? To me. So we turn our attention back to ourselves. If we allow our attention to be distracted by pain or by ill health or by anything else, it's because of our vasanas, because we have an inclination to dwell on that. So the whole purpose of this teaching is to cultivate the inclination to attend to our own being, satvasana, and to give up the inclination to attend to anything else, all Vishaya vasana. How do we cultivate this satvasana and give up the Vishaya vasana? Only by clinging to I am. So if we are experiencing ill health, if we're experiencing pain, that is according to prarabdha. That is, whatever happens according to prarabdha is his will. He has selected that as what will be most conducive to our spiritual progress. So if it's necessary for us to be in good health, he will give us good health. If it's necessary for us to be sick, we'll be sick. So whatever happens, there's a saying in Tamil, Ellam nammaike, all is for good. So whatever happens, because nothing can, God is by definition all-knowing. So nothing can happen without his knowledge. He is all powerful, so nothing can happen without his consent. And he's all loving, so nothing can happen that is not good for all of us. So since Bhagavan, who is that all-knowing, all-loving, and all-powerful God, has selected a certain destiny for us, and whatever we experience is our destiny to experience that, it is all for good. So if we start thinking, oh, I need a healthy body, then you'll start thinking, then what sort of food should I eat? What exercise should I do? Should I go to the gym? Should I do this? And now I've got this pain. So how can I treat this pain? Should I take to naturopathy, or should I take to homeopathy, or should I take Western medicine? Or the mind will be constantly thinking of that. There is a verse in Uḻḷadu Nāṛpadu, in which Bhagavan answers this very question. In verse 12, I think it is. The gist of the verse is, give up thinking this despicable body is I. And then he gives an analogy, which actually he takes from a verse of Shankara. Trying to know oneself while cherishing this ephemeral body is like taking a crocodile as a raft to cross a river. If you want to cross a river, don't choose a crocodile as your raft, because you'll never cross the river. The crocodile will swallow you before you get there. So we need to give up cherishing this body. This body is being taken care of by prarabdha. If it's our prarabdha for sickness, pain and ill health to come, it will come. And it's for our good. If it's our prarabdha to be healthy for some time, we'll be healthy for some time. It's all according to prarabdha. Why Bhagavan taught us this law of karma is to free our mind from concern about all these things. If it's our destiny to be healthy, to be unhealthy, to be sick, we cannot avoid that, however much we want to and however much we try to. So we should not be concerned about these things. As Bhagavan said in the note to his mother, that which is never to happen is not going to happen, however much effort you make. That which is to happen is not going to stop, however much you try to obstruct it. So if it's your destiny to be sick, if it's your destiny to be in pain, you cannot avoid that. That doesn't mean that if sickness or pain comes, you shouldn't take medicine, because just as the sickness comes according to prarabdha, the medicine also comes according to prarabdha. Whether the medicine will work or not, that is also according to prarabdha. So let things take their own course. Yes, when we're hungry, what do? We eat. So it's not saying you stop eating, stop taking medicine. You let things take their own course. If it's our destiny to be hungry today, to have no access to food, we'll be hungry. If it's our destiny to eat, we'll eat. So let things take their own course. We should not be concerned about this. We should be concerned about one thing and one thing alone. Who am I? Hold on to I am. That's all we need to be concerned about. Let the body and everything else, leave it to the care of prarabdha. It's no concern of ours. Whatever happens, it's happening for good, because it's happening all by his will. So I don't know whether Namle Swami actually said that, but that is certain. If he did say that, whether he said it or not, it is not Bhagavan's teachings. Bhagavan's teaching is we should not be concerned about these things. We should not cherish this ephemeral body. What we should cherish is only what is permanent, what is eternal. That is I am. I hope that adequately answers that question.
Yeah. Thank you, Michael. The next question is, this is, did Bhagavan confirm the story behind the appearance of Arunachala as a hill? And also, is it true that Arunachala resides in the hill as Dakshina Morty in human form, even to this day? I have heard many stories about them, but would love to hear if Bhagavan has said anything to this effect. It would greatly help if you could go into the details.
These are Puranic stories. These Puranic stories, they are intended to convey deeper and subtler truths. That is the story of Arunachala appearing before Brahma and Vishnu as a column of fire. what is the implication of this? Bhagavan has said that there are two verses at the beginning of Arunachala Stuti Panchakam, in which one verse is by Modagana, but he's recording what Bhagavan has said, that is Arunachala Tattvam and Deepadarshana Tattvam. In the verse composed by Modagana, but though this is composed by Modagana, he was recording what Bhagavan had said. The meaning is oneself, the heart, the center, which surges when intellect and ego suffer anguish, is the actual truth of Annamalai, which shone between Brahma and Vishnu when pride was dispersed, not knowing to reach. That's the literal meaning. That is the verses, Buddhi ahankaram pulambeda vongum mati idiam tan marayavnum malum natavariyadu nalangulaya vanna madioli Annamalai inadu meye. So Bhagavan is describing here the truth, the significance of this story. So the implication is the actual truth or significance of Annamalai, that's Arunachala, which shone as a column of light between Brahma and Vishnu when their pride was dispersed because of their not being able to reach its top or bottom. The actual truth of that Annamalai is oneself, the heart, the center, which surges when intellect and ego suffer anguish. That is implying when ego and intellect and ego despair, not being able to know their real nature, and when they thereby are willing to surrender and subside, that is the significance of Arunachala. So, as Bhagavan explained in more detail, in that story, Brahma represents the intellect, the outward-going intellect. So in that story, Brahma takes the form of a swan and flies upward, seeking to know the top of the column. And he flew upwards for thousands of years until he was exhausted. And he was giving up hope of being able to reach the top. And he was beginning to think to himself, okay, I cannot reach the top, but Vishnu will never know I didn't reach the top. So I can go back and say I've reached the top. And just at that moment, there was a flower falling. And that flower, Brahma stopped that flower and asked, how far away is the top? And the flower said, you will never reach the top. I have been falling for thousands of years because I fell from the top. So you will never reach there. Then Brahma said, okay, will you bear false witness on my behalf? Will you say I have reached the top and I brought you from the top? The flower agreed. So Brahma returned. And Vishnu, in the meanwhile, took the form of a boar and was burrowing into the earth. Even here, there's a significance, because whereas Brahma wanted to go upwards, Vishnu wanted to go down, seeking the feet. So Vishnu was burrowing into the earth, and he also became exhausted, and he began to understand, okay, I will never find the bottom of this column. It is due to our ignorance, our pride. But we were claiming I am the greatest. That is, before this column of fire appeared, each was claiming to be the greatest. That was ignorance. So we have both forgotten Shiva, who has appeared as this column of light. Therefore, he decided to return and admit his failure. So when he came back and they reached the starting point, Brahma proudly proclaimed, I have reached the top and I brought this Ketiki flower from the top as my witness. Vishnu, in his heart, he was sure, no, this cannot be true. He's telling a lie. But how can he say it? So he said, well, I didn't reach the bottom. This is Shiva himself, this column of fire. So he began to worship Shiva. And Shiva at once appeared and cursed Brahma because Brahma had told a lie that Brahma should be born. Brahma should never, in no temple should Brahma be worshipped. But he blessed Vishnu, because of your humility, because of your subsidence, you are equal to me, one with me. So you will be worshipped as my equal throughout all time. And he also, the flower was cursed, but because it had told a lie, that flower should never be used again in Shiva Puja. So that particular type of flower is never used in Shiva Puja. So this is the story, but the significance of that is Brahma is the outward going intellect. That is, Brahma going upwards represents the intellect going outwards. So however much our intellect goes outwards, trying to know about the world through philosophy or science or whatever, any outward learning, any outward movement of our mind, we will never know the ultimate truth. We cannot know the ultimate truth by the outward facing intellect. In order to know the truth, we need to turn within and subside back within. That is what is represented. That turning within and subsidence is what is represented by Vishnu burrowing down. And the deeper we go within, the more humble we will become. And we will understand that as a separate entity, we can never know ourselves as we actually are. In order to know ourselves as we actually are, we need to surrender ourselves completely. When we surrender ourselves completely, we will know that Shivoham, I am that very Shiva is myself. So that is why Vishnu was blessed to be always equal to Shiva, because Vishnu is none other than Shiva and Shiva is none other than Vishnu. They are one and the same. But in order to know our oneness, that in order to experience that Jiva Brahmaikya, that oneness of Jiva and Brahman, we need to subside. As Bhagavan says in verse 27 of Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu, which I read earlier today, the state in which I doesn't rise is the state in which we are that. But how to experience that state in which I does not rise, except by investigating ourselves and thereby bringing about the destruction of this rising I. So it's only by turning within and thereby surrendering ourselves completely that we can know ourselves. So behind this story is a very, very deep spiritual significance. So the story is true in the sense that it is signifying this. Whether according to the history books, Aranatra, or according to geology, Aranatra is so many millions years old, and therefore this is a different story. Therefore, science is contradicting this Purana. That is not, we're missing the point. The point of the story is, what is the tattva? What is the significance of this story? That is what Bhagavan has revealed in this verse. And in the next verse, he talks about the significance of Arunachala. And this is a very, very beautiful verse. He says, Itanu ve nāṇam enumatiye nitap buddhi idiate parandiha nokal aduvidama me churakangebu madirnum Bhumadiyanum anamale inadumiye. That means giving up the awareness, I am, this body alone is I. Itanabe nanam inumatiye nitap. That mind abiding only in the heart by self-attentiveness. The term he uses here for self-attentiveness is ahanokal. That means looking within, looking at I, by self-attentiveness, seeing the non-dual real light of I. In other words, seeing that non-dual pure awareness of being, I am, is the actual truth of seeing the light of Annamalai, which is called the center of the world. So here Bhagavan is explaining the tattva, the significance of seeing the Deepam and the story that is associated with that. So the important point with these stories is, what do they signify? Yes, they are true in the sense that they are signifying something, a very, very deep meaning. Whether this thing happened historically or not, this is, according to Bhagavan, this is all a dream. So we are not interested in the historical accuracy of Puranas. We are interested in what is the what is the spiritual and philosophical significance of them? That is the point we should take from such verses. So I hope this answer. Oh, and you also asked about Dakshina Morty. Arunachala is Dakshina Morty itself. That is the same Shiva who appeared as a column of fire between Brahma and Vishnu, and later subsided into a form of this hill. That same Shiva is the 16-year-old boy who appeared as Dakshina Morty for the Sanakadi rishis. They're all one and the same. And that, if you have any doubt whether Dakshina Morty lives in Arunachala, he appeared in the very, within the, well, maybe not in our lifetime, but in the lifetime of the generation before us, he lived for 54 years in Tiruvannamalai as Bhagavan Ramana. Bhagavan, Arunachala, and Dakshina Morty are all one and the same. There is also a story, but Arunachala resides as a yogi on the north side of the hill under a banyan tree. Bhagavan was aware of that story, and it was because of that story, it was because he saw that large banyan tree that he went to look for that tree. And while doing so, he brushed his thigh against the hornet's nest. And because those hornets stung him, he couldn't proceed any further. He hobbled back to Virupaksha. Some devotees believe, quite reasonably, I think, but the reason Bhagavan was prevented from going to that banyan tree is he himself is Arunagiri yogi who is sitting under that banyan tree. So if he had gone there, he would have merged there and he wouldn't have come back. So because that body of as Bhagavan Ramana had a mission to give us these teachings, he was prevented from going there. But at the time when he breathed his last, when that body breathed its last, that light appeared. People who were present nearby saw that light flashing from the room where Bhagavan was. Other people who were further away saw the light going behind and merging in Arunachala. So Bhagavan is Arunachala. He's Dakshinamurti, he's Arunagiri Yogi, whatever you want to call it. So yes, these things are all true. But as Bhagavan says, how true is the name and form of the Guru? It is like the lion that appears in the elephant's dream. Ultimately, the name and form of Bhagavan Ramana is not real. But it brings about the real awakening, because what is it that appeared in that name and form is our own self, our own real nature appeared outwardly in the form of Bhagavan to tell us to turn within. If we turn within, we find out who is actually Bhagavan Ramana. Ariyati Tarajivara Dahavari Jaguhail, Arivai Rami Paramatman Arunachala Ramana. Arunachala Ramana is that Paramatma, but blissfully exists as awareness. That fundamental awareness I am, he blissfully exists in the cave of the heart lotus of all the different jivas, beginning from Hari. So he is that which is always shining in our heart as I. That is the true form of Bhagavan. He appeared outwardly in this form in order to tell us to turn within. But ultimately, all names and forms are unreal. What is real is only I am. So that is Bhagavan Ramana, that is Arunachala, that is Dakshinamurti, that is Arunagiri Yogi. That alone is what actually exists. So I hope that answers that adequately.
The next question is, what's the difference between Atma-vichara and meditation? Is it that the objective of meditation is manolaya, while Atma-vichara is about manonasha?
Right. Okay. There are many different types of meditation. As I said, Bhagavan, sometimes Bhagavan talked about Swarupa Dhyana, meditation on one's own real nature. That means being self-attentive. That is the same as Atma-vichara. But in this paragraph, when he contrasts, he contrasts Atma-vichara with dhyana, what he refers to here as dhyana is imagining oneself or considering oneself to be Satchidananda Brahman. In other words, I am Brahman. That is what he refers to as meditation here. But the same term meditation is used for so many other practices. In yoga, there are so many different meditation practices. Some people meditate on the breath, or so they meditate on different chakras in the body, or they do vipassana meditation. So meditation, we need to understand from the context. When the term meditation is used, what type of meditation it is. There are so many different types of meditation. You can meditate on anything, but the only useful meditation, well, no, that's an exaggeration. But the most useful kind of meditation is to meditate on oneself. As Bhagavan says in the 8th paragraph of the 8th verse of Upadēśa Undiyār, he uses two terms here. One is Anya Bhava. Anya means what is other. So Anya Bhava is meditating what is other. In this context, it implies meditating on God as other than ourselves, but it can mean meditating on anything other than ourselves, if you want to take it in a broader sense. And he contrasts that with Ananya Bhava, which means meditation on what is not other. That implies what is not other than ourselves. What is not other than ourselves? Only ourself is not other than ourselves. So what he refers to as Ananya Bhava means meditating on ourself alone. In other words, Swarupa Dhyana, self-attentiveness. So he says, rather than Anya Bhava, certainly Ananya Bhava, in which he is I, is the best among all. So the best meditation of all is to meditate only on ourselves. Why is it the best meditation? There are several reasons. One is, in this context, it is best in the sense that it is the most effective means of purifying the mind, because that is the subject that's being discussed. But Bhagavan is discussing here different practices for purifying the mind. So the most effective means to purify the mind is only self-attentiveness and Ananya Bhava, meditating on nothing other than ourselves. Why is it most effective? Because the impurities in the mind are the Vishaya Vasanas. Vishaya Vasanas are the inclination to attend to anything other than ourselves. So what is the most effective means to weaken the Vishaya Vasanas and increase the Sat Vasana? Only by meditating on nothing other than ourselves. So it's the most effective means to purify the mind. Also, there's another very deep reason why meditating on ourselves is distinct from all other types of meditation, which involve meditating on something other than ourselves. Meditating on anything other than ourselves is a mental activity. That is, our attention is moving away from ourselves towards some other thing. So that is a mental activity. Whereas meditating on ourselves, being self-attentive, is not an action. It is a state of just being. Because when we attend to ourselves, our attention is not moving away from ourselves towards other thing. It is resting in its source. And to the extent to which we attend to ourselves, ego, which is the first rising, subsides. When ego subsides, what remains is just being. So in the next verse, verse 9 of Upadēśa Undiyār, Bhagavan says, he indicates what is the result of this self-attentiveness. He says, by the bhava balatina, that means by the strength of meditation. In this context, what he means by meditation is what he referred to in the previous verse as the Ananya Bhava, the best among all, the meditation on nothing other than ourselves. So by the strength of such meditation, being in Sat Bhava means the state of being. So by attending to ourselves, we remain in the state of just being. And that state of just being transcends all bhavana. It transcends all mental activity, all thinking or imagination or meditation. And that alone is Parabhakti Tattva. That alone is the truth of supreme devotion, or the true state of supreme devotion. So when we talk about meditation, we need to understand from the context what type of meditation is being talked about. If it is meditation on ourselves, then that is Atma-vichara. If it is meditation on anything other than ourselves, it is maybe beneficial in purifying the mind, but it cannot bring about the destruction of mind. And if you follow the path of yoga, that is, so long as you're sticking to the practices of pranayama and the related practices of meditation taught in yoga, that eventually leads to nirvikalpa samadhi. Nirvikalpa samadhi is not manonasa, it's manolaya. And as Bhagavan clarified by telling, he often told the story of the yogi on the banks of the Ganga who went into nirvikalpa samadhi for 300 years, and when he came out, the first thing he asked for, the first thought in his mind was the last thought that had gone, was in his mind when he went into nirvikalpa samadhi. In other words, water. He'd asked for water, and 300 years later, when he woke up, he angrily asked, "Where's my water?" So Bhagavan said, even the most superficial thought was not eradicated. So being no matter how long you remain in nirvikalpa samadhi or any other state of manolaya, it doesn't weaken the vasanas. The vasanas, the Vishaya vasanas can be weakened only in the waking and dream state. And the most effective way to weaken them is by self-investigation. So as Bhagavan said in verse 13 and 14 of Upadēśa Undiyār, in verse 13 he says, dissolution of the mind is of two kinds, laya and nasa. Whatever is subsided in laya or dissolved in laya will rise. In other words, laya is only a temporary dissolution of mind. But if the form of the mind dies in nasa, it will not rise. So our aim is not manolaya, but manonasa. And how to bring about manonasa? Continue, because Bhagavan is here talking about yoga, he says in the next verse, verse 14, when one sends the mind, which becomes calm when one restrains the breath, on the investigating path, only when one sends the mind, which becomes calm when one restrains the breath, on the investigating path will its form perish. In other words, what Bhagavan implies here is, if we practice yoga, practice pranayama and other associated practices, it's okay to practice up to a certain point where the mind becomes calm. But don't go beyond that point and subside in manolaya, because once you subside in manolaya, you can't make any progress. So once a certain degree of calmness of mind has been achieved by pranayama and other yoga practices of yoga, the mind should then be sent on what he describes here as or-vari. Or-vari has two meanings. Or is a verb that means to investigate or know. So or-vari is a poetic abbreviation of or-vari, the path of investigation. Or-vari can also mean oru-vari, one path. But what is the one path by which we can annihilate the mind? Only the path of self-investigation. So what Bhagavan clearly implies in this verse is that if you follow the practices of yoga, don't follow them up to the point where you go into manolaya, because that's you're then it's a dead end. You don't achieve anything by subsiding in manolaya, of nirvikalpa samadhi, as they call it. Before the mind goes into that nirvikalpa samadhi, then turn the attention back within to investigate yourself. If you investigate yourself, then only will the mind die. So your question was about the difference between meditation and Atma-vichara. If your meditation is on yourself alone, in other words, if you're being self-attentive, that is Atma-vichara. If you're meditating on anything other than yourself, including even thoughts such as I am Brahman, that is not Atma-vichara, because Atma-vichara is attending only to ourselves, keeping our mind fixed on ourselves. That alone is Atma-vichara, as Bhagavan says in the 16th paragraph. Thinking I am that Satchidananda Brahman, that is mere meditation. It's mere thinking, attending to a thought, instead of attending to ourselves, attending to our own being, ourself alone, that is Atma-vichara. Attending to the thought I am Brahman, that is mere meditation. That is attending to something other than ourselves. Because the thought I am Brahman is not ourself. It's a thought that comes and goes. Now, because we've studied Bhagavan's teachings and been a little bit of Advaita, we know I am Brahman. But that's just a new piece of knowledge. We weren't born with the knowledge I am Brahman. It's something that we learned on the way. And having learned it, we have to forget it one day. But what we know always is I am. So I am alone is the truth. Meditate only on I am. Not on the words I am, but on what is those words I am refer to our own being. That is what we should meditate on. That is Atma-vichara. I hope that adequately answers that one.
The next question is, what is the distinction which you had previously made between the person and the ego? I understood it to mean that the person changes throughout life, but the ego does not, perhaps.
The person is the five she's. The body, the life, the mind, the intellect, and the will. All these make the person. Ego is that I which is aware of itself as I am this person. So ego is, as Bhagavan says, it's a formless phantom. So ego is not any of these five she's. These five she's make up the person that we seem to be. For example, in a dream, we are aware of ourselves as a person in that dream. We are also aware of many other people, but we are not the person we take ourselves to be. We are the dreamer who is dreaming itself to be that person. Likewise now, according to Bhagavan, this is just a dream. So now we're aware of ourselves as I am this person. I am Michael, or I am whoever. This person, Michael, is just a part of my dream. I am the dreamer, and the nature of dream is that the dreamer always dreams itself as a person in its dream. So we never dream without being a part of that dream. So though we now experience ourselves as I am this person, we are something distinct from this person. That is, the person consists of five sheaves. All these five sheaves are jada. That is, the body is not aware of itself. The breath of a life is not aware of itself. The mind, meaning all their other thoughts, the thoughts, feelings, perceptions, memories, and so on, they're not aware of themselves. The intellect is not aware of itself. The will, the likes, dislikes, desires, attachments, are not aware of themselves. Who is it who is aware of all these things and identifies itself with all these things? That is ego. So ego is neither the pure chit, nor is it this jada person, this bundle of five sheaves. It is chit jada granti. It is the not formed by the entanglement of these two. So as Bhagavan makes clear in verse 24 of Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu, the insentient body, and what he means by body there is all the five sheaths. So he's referring to the whole person. The person is jada. The person seems to be aware because we take ourselves to be the person. And because we take ourselves to be this person, we assume every other person is an ego just like us. So every other person seems to be aware just like us. But actually what is aware is not the person, it is ego that mistakes this person to be itself. So as Bhagavan says in verse 24 of Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu, he says, the body, the insentient body does not say I. That's a metaphorical way of saying the insentient body is not aware of itself as I. Why is it not aware of itself as I? Because it's insentient, it's not aware. So none of that, and the body there refers to all the five sheaves. And Satchit, the real awareness, the being awareness, the existence awareness doesn't rise. But between these two, one thing rises as the one thing rises as the extent of a body. One thing I rises as the extent of a body. This one thing that rises as the extent of a body, this is ego. This is not the body, because the body is insentient. It is not Satchit, because Satchit doesn't rise. It borrows the properties of both, but it is neither. That's why Bhagavan says it rises between. Means it's neither Satchit nor is it this, but it borrows its existence and awareness from Sat-Chit. It borrows the form from a body. So ego is distinct from the person it takes itself to be. Now we're aware of ourselves as this person. Before this person was born, ego was still there, but it was aware of itself as some other person in some previous life. And if ego isn't annihilated in this life, then it's going to dream another dream, and it's going to take itself to be some other person. Now we may be aware of ourselves as I am Michael. Next life we may be I am Lakshmi, or I am Muhammad, or whatever. There's so many. We will identify ourselves as a person. Whether a human person, or we could even take ourselves to be a dog or a cat or a sheep or a horse or whatever, because it's all a dream. Or we could take ourselves to be a deva in heaven or someone suffering in hell. It's all a dream. Whatever we experience in a dream is the prarabdha, what we are destined to experience in that dream. But we are the one who has dreamt this and is experiencing it. We are not the person we take ourselves to be in the dream. I hope this adequately answers that question. This is a very, very important distinction to make. The distinction between ego and whatever ego takes itself to be. So when we investigate ourselves, we are not investigating this person. We are not investigating any of these 5 sheaves. We are investigating the I that is aware of itself as I am this bundle of 5 sheaves. I am this person. So I hope that adequately answers that question.
So this is about the world's current events, I think, quite quickly, perhaps. Some people say that the COVID vaccine hinders spiritual development. What do you, Michael, think about it, or what would Ramana say about it? And the second part is sort of connected to it, really, which is that there's, I think this person is saying there is a kind of Orwellian totalitarianism covertly emerging in Italy from 15th October. People have to be vaccinated, otherwise they're suspended from their job. It seems to be a violation of our basic constitutional rights, and that those who have a different opinion, even from that, from different scientific evidence, from that imposed by the government, have no rights anymore. Would Ramana suggest peacefully to fight for freedom and rights against this totalitarian evolution, like Gandhi would have done, I think, with civil disobedience? Or should we just be concerned with practicing self-attentiveness and let the state of the world take care of itself and get worse?
I don't think Gandhi would have objected to vaccination. When people are getting sick and dying, and vaccination doesn't give us 100% protection, but it is clearly reducing the severity of the disease if we catch it. It also reduces the chances of our catching it. And it is thereby preventing or slowing down the spread of the disease. And we know if this virus continues spreading unchecked, it will be taking more and more and more mutations, which can be more and more dangerous. So this vaccination, it's a simple fact, but I mean, there's so much evidence for the fact that vaccination, for example, in the UK, vaccination has been rolled out very widely. Now, the vast majority of adults have been vaccinated. And though the COVID is still there, though people are still getting infected, the mortality rate has fallen exponentially because of this vaccination. And there is so much evidence all over the world, but where where many people have been vaccinated, it has reduced the severity of and it reduced the mortality and everything. So what should we do? One of the principles of on the spiritual path is ahimsa, not causing harm. So if we can do something that will prevent harm, we should do it. So having a vaccination is a big deal. It's a small needle, a small prick in the arm, and that gives you, it is, people say, oh, it's unnatural. well, what is natural? The body itself is unnatural according to Bhagavan. So it is a natural. It is working with the body to help the body to build up an immunity. It's not working. Vaccination is not working against nature. It's working with nature. To help protect us from disease. And by being vaccinated, we are not only protecting ourselves, we're also protecting others. So arguably, we've got a moral obligation to be vaccinated. Of course, there are some people who have some religious beliefs or some beliefs or other, they don't want to be vaccinated. That's their karma. But if we are following Bhagavan's path, the reasonable thing to do is to follow the scientific evidence and to be vaccinated. That's my opinion. And I'm sure when Bhagavan was there in Tiruvannamalai, there were epidemics. There was one time there was a plague epidemic or something was there, and the whole town of Tiruvannamalai was evacuated. Bhagavan at that time moved to Pachamankoil, which is a temple on the northeast of the side of the hill, at the foot of the northeast foot of the hill. Though the whole town had been evacuated, he was allowed to stay there, and a few other sadhus were allowed to stay there. But the town had been evacuated because of so these epidemics have been happening from time immemorial. In the Middle Ages, when the Black Death came to Europe, something like 2/3 of the population of Europe was wiped out. So we are fortunate nowadays, but we have modern medicine, and these things, of course, modern medicine it cannot prevent death when death is due to come, but modern medicine can protect us to a great extent under such circumstances. So the reasonable thing to do is to be vaccinated. As regarding the governments trying to force people to be vaccinated, like the example of Italy, I didn't know about this, but if this is happening, this is a political question. Should governments do this or not? They're not actually forcing people to be vaccinated, but they're just saying if you're not vaccinated, then, from what you said, that people lose their job if they're not vaccinated. Well, if you're going to work, if you're interacting with other people, you have to be considerate to other people. So it's reasonable to be vaccinated. That's a reasonable choice. Whether governments should try and coerce people or not, that's another matter. That's a political question. But to call this Orwellian, people have nowadays, well, from time immemorial, there have been conspiracy theories, but nowadays with social media, conspiracy theories are particularly prevalent. If you get vaccinated, the government has put something in this vaccination, the government is going to be able to control your mind and everything. There are people who believe that, and so they don't get vaccinated. But it's not, believing conspiracy theories is not reasonable. Because there have always been conspiracy theories, and most conspiracy theories, you can make up a theory about anything, but most conspiracy theories are false. Conspiracy theories just show the nature of the human mind is to be to like to believe weird and wonderful things. But when we have, I don't say scientists are always right, but generally scientists are trying to do things right. They're trying to understand how things work, what will help, what will not help. So as a general rule, it is wiser to follow the general scientific consensus than to follow the conspiracy theorists. So, and if a government has actually put something in the vaccine to control our mind, that's our destiny. Why should we be bothered about that? But why should we believe fantastic conspiracy theories? Then we can believe anything. So we have to be reasonable. So my view is, we have a moral obligation. Whether we accept that we have a moral obligation or not, I'm not going to argue about that, but it seems to me that we have a moral obligation because we're protecting ourselves and we're protecting others. And to think that it's a spiritual detriment, I cannot see any scope for, I mean, what is spirituality? Giving up this body and knowing what we actually are, that is spirituality. So this is all very mundane things.
Yeah, we've kind of waded into an area where there seem to be very strong views. So
yes. Well, I gave my views for better or for worse.
Yes,
if you don't agree with my views, then you're entitled to your own views.
Yeah, because simply to allege with the fact that I've had one or two very strong messages on the scientific evidence. But in any case, I think the ethics of it has been stated very clearly. So I think we'll leave it at that. Ahimsa is I think that's the best way to think about it. There are two short questions. I wonder if that can just be quickly wrapped up. One was that if nothing arises in Sat Chit, what is it aware of? Is it only Sat Chit and not Satchitanand?
Sat is Chit and Anand. Chit is Sat and Anand. Anand is Sat and Chit. They are not three different things. They are three different descriptions of one and the same thing. So the very nature of Sat is to be aware and to be happy. The very nature of Chit is to be Sat and to be happy. The very nature of happiness is to be and to be aware. They're all one and the same thing. And what is Satchitananda aware of? It's aware only of itself. It is a pure being awareness.
The last question is there a link? Is there a link between insanity and our Atma or self?
There's a link between ego and insanity, because whether you think I am sane or I am insane, both are an identification. Atman, by Atman here, I think in this context, Atman means our real nature. Our real nature is never identified as anything. It is as it is. So it is beyond both sanity and insanity. So sanity is only for the mind. Sanity or insanity are only for the mind. Who is it who takes this mind to be I? It is ego. So that is why Bhagavan says, but in verse 24 of Uḻḷadu Nāṛpadu, he says, ego is that which rises between the body and Sat Chit. There, when he says between, it is the only link. That is, Sat Chit is what is actually exists. The only connection between Sat Chit and all phenomena is ego, because it's when we rise as ego, all the phenomena seem to exist. So phenomena depend for their semi-existence upon ego. All objects depend upon the subject for their semi-existence because they seem to exist only in the view of ego. And ego depends upon Sat Chit for its semi-existence because it's borrowed its existence and awareness from Sat Chit, but ego seems to exist and seems to be aware. So ultimately, what actually exists is only Sat Chit.
The word in the Bible is kind of divine, is sacred. And I know we have to live with language as thinking people. Like creatures don't think. So they go out and they'll fight, they might kill themselves, end up in a bloody battle. But humans can actually put out thoughts, and the thought dies rather than the human being. So when you come to not being able to fight mentally or put your case forward, you can become quite insane. So that's why I was thinking about what is this link between being able to speak and to say your case and to remain sane.
That's firstly, why should we think animals don't think? animals may not think in language, they may not think in words, but they're still thinking. Animals can recognize. What do you mean by thinking? Do you mean by thought? Do you mean just the words that go through your mind? In other words, mental chatter.
No, we can actually talk to each other and resolve an issue.
Yes, that is verbal communication. Animals also have communication. They communicate in their own ways. Even some animals have like dolphins have quite sophisticated languages. But
and they play fight quite often, don't they? They don't fight to kill, but even so, they're resolving something. But in the Bible, they say the word is God.
Yes, but the word is there used in a metaphorical sense. Who is the word? The word refers to Jesus. In the beginning was the word, and the word was made God, and the word was with God, and the word was God, and the word was made flesh. There it's referring to Jesus as the word.
I thought it was the Old Testament that said the word was God.
No, it's in the beginning of the Gospel of St. John, if I remember correctly.
Oh, so sorry, could you say that again? The word was made flesh.
I can't remember exactly. It was something like, in the beginning was the word, and the word was with God, and the word was God, and the word was made flesh. The word is there. Well, I mean, this is all metaphorical. It's referring to, I think, how we can take it, but the word here, because it refers to Jesus, that is when it said the word was made flesh, it's referring to Christ. Bhagavan explained the Christian Trinity as being God the Father is Ishwara, God the Son is Guru, and God the Holy Spirit is Atma. So God, Guru, and Self are one and the same, according to Bhagavan. So the word there is referring to Christ, who is Guru. It's the function of Christ was as Guru. So the word there means Guru. The Guru and God are one and the same.
Right. So the Guru's word is divine.
Yes, certainly.
Right. Okay, that clears that up. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, just this last very quick one, because somebody's a bit worried about this. So that Michael mentioned that we could be reborn in a hell. Is this true? Surely that is worrying.
Behave yourself. Be good, and then you'll avoid hell. Heavens and hells they're all, that is, according to Bhagavan, whatever state we experience, in which we experience phenomena, is a dream. So you can dream that you're in hell, you can dream that you're in heaven. So all religions talk about heavens and hells. But whereas in the Judeo-Christian, that is the Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, they tend to think of heaven and hell as permanent states. According to Dharmic religions, the religions of Indian origin, Hinduism, Jainism, Buddhism, Sikhism, and everything, yes, there are heavens and hells. Even there are different levels of heaven and different levels of hell, according to how good or bad you've been. But these are all temporary states. According to Bhagavan, whatever state we experience, it's all just a dream. So if you've got bad karma to be experienced for some good, you may dream that you're in a hell-like state. Or if you may also dream you're in a heaven-like state, but none of it is real. What is real is only I am. So there was a devotee of Bhagavan called Paramal Swami. When Bhagavan was in Skandashram, he was de facto manager of the ashram because he was a person who liked to organize people and everything. So he took upon himself the role of manager. And later, because he was bossing over people and everything, he wasn't very popular. So he was sort of pushed aside by general consent. And then there were various other managers of the ashram. For some time, Dandapani Swami was the ashram manager. And finally, Chinna Swami, Bhagavan's brother, became the manager. But Perumal Swami felt that he had been deprived of his right as he was a rightful manager. And he was a non-Brahmin, and some of the other managers happened to be Brahmin. So he thought this is all to do with Brahmin, non-Brahmin, the usual type of issues people raise. So anyway, with the support of some people in the town, he started putting court cases against the ashram, claiming that he was the rightful manager. And there were several court cases, and fortunately, Bhagavan wasn't summoned to the court because of some intervention of some devotees. The court came to Bhagavan and questioned Bhagavan. That's recorded. A little bit of that is recorded in talks. But anyway, there were a series of cases put by Perumal Swami. And at one time, he lost one of the court cases. And he came to Bhagavan and he started saying, you may think you've won this case, but I will not leave you. I will take you to the higher court. I will take you to the very highest court. It was the Supreme Court. Even if you're God as you claim to be, which Bhagavan never claimed to be, even if you're God as you claim to be, all you can do is put me in hell, but I will not leave you. Bhagavan said, even if you go to hell, I will not leave you. Why? Because Bhagavan is that which is shining as I in the hearts of all. So even all the creatures who are in hell, that which we're aware of as I, that is Bhagavan. So whether you're in heaven or in hell, Bhagavan is always shining in our heart. Much later in his life, Perumal Swami came to regret what he did. And towards the end of his life, he referred to this, what Bhagavan had said to him. And he said, when Bhagavan said that, I thought he was just challenging me. When he said, even if you go to hell, I will not leave you, I thought he was challenging me. Now I understand that even if he puts me in hell, he will not leave me. So finally, humility came to him. But let us be in heaven or hell, what does it matter? What is real is only I am. So let's cling to I am. Who is experiencing hell? I am. So who am I? So whatever happens is happening according to prarabdha. But prarabdha is the fruit of our past actions selected by God or Guru for us to experience in this lifetime. He selects those fruit that will be most beneficial for our spiritual progress. So if it's beneficial for our spiritual progress to experience some time in hell, let us be in hell for some time. That is only for our good. If it's our destiny to be sometime in heaven, we'll be in heaven for some time, so be it. But what is important is, who am I? Whether I'm in heaven or in hell, I am. So who is this I?
So we can conclude now?
I think I saw, during the break, I was just beginning to look at the questions, and I saw one question in which someone had said, even if we depend on a text such as Nāṉ Ār, the text itself says don't depend on text, turn within. So we can't go wrong. Yes, that is Bhagavan's teachings. What Bhagavan is telling us in Nāṉ Ār is, Nāṉ Ār is a very useful text, but it's a useful text because it tells us to turn within. So let's not just hold on to the text. Let us follow what the text tells us to do, which is to turn within. But then the person goes on to say, oh, no, this wasn't the one there was another one I saw. Someone was asking about what is meant by self-attention. Okay, this is the one I was looking at. Sorry, I picked up the wrong one. David has asked, what do we do when we sit down and conduct self-investigation? Michael says that asking the question internally, who am I, is only an aid. So when looking within, it is easy to be distracted as many things. He says, keeping our mind fixed on ourselves. How is it done in practice? That is, generally, the one thing we are always aware of is our own existence. We are always aware I am. But though we are always aware I am, we are more interested in other things. Because of our interest in other things, we attend to other things, and we thereby neglect this I am. Though it's always there in the background, we don't generally attend to I am. We attend to other things. So all the other things we attend to are objects. So they're things that we can point out. It's got a certain defining characteristics. We can distinguish one thing from another. Now I'm attending to this thought. Now I'm attending to that thought. Now I'm attending to this object out there in the world. All phenomena are objects. They're all things that we perceive, and we can attend to them. But we ourselves are not any phenomenon. We are the perceiver, the one who is aware. We are not an object, we are the subject. So, or at least we have to start from that point to say we are the subject. Ultimately, we are not even the subject, but we start with the subject. So whatever thought or feeling or phenomenon of any kind appears, to whom does it appear? In other words, who is aware of it? I am. So we try to turn our attention back to the one who is aware of it. As I say, we are always aware I am, but because of our interest in other things, we overlook this I am and take interest in attending to other things. So though we are self-aware, we are aware of our own existence, we are negligently self-aware. So self-investigation means being attentively self-aware or being self-attentive. So instead of taking interest in other things, we should take interest in our mere being. We should try to attend to our mere being. We should try to be what we actually are. That is, not allow our attention to move away from anything else, but to hold it on ourselves, to be attentive to ourselves. Many people find this difficult to grasp at first. What does it mean to be self-attentive? That is why Bhagavan sometimes suggested just repeating the word I and trying to attend to that to which the word I refers. Or as Eddie suggested earlier, we can repeat I am or just am and attend to what does the word I or I am or am refer to? It refers to our own being. Let us try to keep our mind dwelling on our own being. As Bhagavan says, the name Atma-vichara refers only to this practice of keeping our mind fixed on ourselves. In other words, fixed on our own being, fixed on that mere awareness I am. That is what we're trying to attend to. If this isn't very clear to us, it will become clear by trying to put it into practice. Just like we cannot learn to ride a bicycle merely by reading books. In order to learn to ride a bicycle, we have to get on a bicycle. And at first, when we get on a bicycle, because we don't have the hang of it, we will wobble and we'll fall off. We have to fall many times, but gradually, we slowly get the hang of it and we're able to balance a bit more steadily. And after 1 or 2 weeks of trying, it's easy. It becomes second nature to us. We can get on, even after 50 years, we can get on a cycle. And it's once learned, it's learned. Likewise with this, where at first we will be unsteady and we'll be tottering. But by trying more and more to be self-attentive, the way will become clearer and clearer. And then once it's clear what is meant by self-attentiveness, our problems are not over, because we still have so much liking to attend to things other than ourselves. We have so much inclination to attend to other things. So as you say, we get distracted by many things. Why do we get distracted by things? Because we are we have a more interest in attending to those other things than in attending to ourselves. So we will fail many times in our attempt to be self-attentive. That is, we may be self-attentive for a moment or two, then again our attention slips away. Doesn't matter. However many times our attention is distracted by other things, we patiently bring it back to ourselves. The more we practice like this, as Bhagavan says, by Upadēśa, by practicing in this way, the strength of the mind to abide in its source continues. So however many times our attention goes away to other things, doesn't matter. We simply bring it back to ourselves. Our attention goes away to those other things. In other words, those other things have appeared in our awareness. So to whom have they appeared? To me. We turn our attention back towards ourselves.